back to my YouTube channel, where today we'll be covering curating your crochet capsule collection, a guide for the year ahead. Today I hope to guide you through the creative process of designing a crochet capsule collection that reflects your personal style, creative goals, and overall vision for the year ahead. I'm going to first give a bit of an introduction before moving into the actual process of finding your direction, considerations, and things to decide on for building your capsule, and then tips for bringing everything together before concluding. You may or may not be wondering, what is a capsule collection? Well, according to Google, it's a small coordinated collection of crocheted clothing and accessories designed to be versatile and easily mixed and matched to create numerous outfits. As is the definition implies, this usually refers to clothing and garments specifically. However, in our instance, we're really going to extend this out to really mean any projects. The two key words for capsule collections are going to be intention and cohesion. Our sort of simplified definition, given all of those things, is that it's a small cohesive set of projects that complement each other through color, texture, or even theme. Now that we have the definition, why exactly should you try it? What benefits can it provide to you? Well, for one, reducing creative fatigue and overwhelm, providing creative direction for the year, and just overall building a sense of creative identity in your work. The first 2 points kind of go together in that if you've ever actually been through the process of the crocheting for the entire year, just building up your skill or whatever, and you do it without any sorts of planning, you'll find that you're often picking projects, based on how you're feeling and what attracts to you most, right? But you're not necessarily being very intentional about it. And as a result, your creativity definitely, I feel like, goes through highs and lows throughout the year where you're trying to figure out what projects to make one. And with that, you kind of feel like you're building your skill really mindlessly and without very much intention. And I think that where this comes in is it adds that's missing into it, as well as cohesivity. On top of that, as speaking to the creative identity thing, is that I've been there 100% where I'm interested in making these different projects because they're cute, I like them, or I want to work on the skill, but I'm not really adding a lot of me in it. So then I finish it and I'm like, oh, this is nice. But I often find that compared to projects where maybe I have imported a little bit more of, my personal style, my personal identity into it, I don't really have as much fondness for it. So this is also what's going to help you really build that overall out and the different benefits that, creating a capsule collection provides. Now that we know what a capsule collection is and why it may be beneficial to you, how exactly do you design one? The leading question, or the big question that I want you to have on the top of your mind when you're going through this portion of creating a capsule collection is, what do you want your crochet to represent for the year? For instance, your word might be something like ease. Within that, you can sort of make it easier, this process of thinking about what exactly that entails, whatever word you decided on, with these three considerations or lenses that you can look into. First up is direction, which is really going to be about where your personal style comes in. So what sort of things are inspiring to you? Things that you want your work to be littered throughout your work. Next up is going to be purpose. This is really where intention is made. So what sorts of things do you want to be crocheting? Is this about decorations, wearable items, practical things? What is the things that you're wanting to make? And then goals, which I suppose could be intertwined with purpose, and that, you're trying to decipher sort of things that you want. But with goals, it's really going to be factoring in your current crochet skill level and then where exactly you want to take it. So maybe your goal might be to learn new stitches, or you have a bunch of yarn and you want to use your yarn stash. Just generally building confidence. These are going to be things that you really want to think about that lead into that overarching question of what you want your crochet to represent this year. That, even though that's the leading question, it's the start process of everything. And I think that with that, you kind of can get into these branches of things that I talked about, as well as other things that maybe didn't come up before. The challenge that I want you to do is to jot down 2 to 3 words that overall describe your crochet vision. Next up, we're going to be going into the overall building of your capsule. The things that, using both what we just talked about as well as, factoring in other things that are important here when actually putting everything together. So this is going to include things like your scope, project mix, your color palette, as well as the textures and stitches that you'll be using. First up, we have scope, which for here, the most important thing is just how many projects you want to be in your collection. This is definitely, I think, going to be dependent on where you are in your journey, as well as how much time in general that you have. So, for instance, if you maybe are someone who you're newer to crochet, or you don't have a lot of time, you might be doing less projects. Or someone who maybe is more seasoned, has more time on their hands, you might be doing more projects. I think overall a good starting point for no matter your time or your skill level is going to be 3 to 5 projects. It really enables you, I think, to explore a theme without feeling it too overwhelming. Next up, we have project mix. This is going to be what kind of projects you want in the collection. And you can really have, as the name implies, a mix of things, or if you maybe are focused on a specific category of things that you want, it could be that the entire collection is of one variety. This is just kind of like a random mix, but maybe you might decide to start with this, and then the next time you make another collection, you have your own sort of mix, but you might want 1 to 2 wearables, a home decor item, and then 1 creative or statement item. I think this is a good mix for if you're trying to explore different avenues of crochet, and maybe you're at that point where you're trying to decide what aspect or what category you like the most. Next up, we have color palette. This is what colors will actually present across your collection. This really gives it the cohesive vibe that we're talking about. Now, the easiest method, if you want to actually pick your colors, is to go with a base color, a contrast color, and an accent color. This doesn't necessarily mean that this is what that you only have to do 3 colors, or that you're confined to this method, because there's other methods for putting different color palettes together. If you're someone who maybe that's not your forte, there are actually dedicated color palette generators. But if you want to take it to that next step of actually being really intentional and specifically going and manually picking out colors, then I would say that this is the easiest method. Here are some examples. So for your base color, that's really going to be your foundation color, and it's the one that is going to appear most often across your capsule. These are going to often be more neutral or muted in order to let the other colors shine. You can sort of think of it as your collection staple. For contrast color, this is the thing or the color that's going to be adding your depth and variety. It's usually going to be darker, cooler, or more saturated. In general, the name of the game here is just that there's a noticeable contrast between that base color that we talked about just now, a little bit ago. This is going to appear in fewer pieces, but it does make that base tone that's more muted pop. Finally, for the accent color, it's going to, in general, be like a highlight or personality color. You use it sparingly, maybe for things like edges, motifs, or just statement pieces, but it adds your energy and identity, and I think it's the color really that, if I were to assign it to something, this is what's like your personal touch. Finally, we have textures and stitches. For cohesion, you want to consider repeating stitches or motifs across the different projects that you create. But in general, just let your theme and colors guide your stitch choice. So, for instance, if you wanted your collection to be more nature inspired, a lot of the themes that are presenting here really natural and connected to nature, then you might want to go for stitches and textures that are more soft, have more curvature, they're organic, as opposed to things that have sharp edges or super straight lines and things. Once we have a better understanding of what our capsule collection will include, we can then move into making our ideas a reality in this, what I call bringing it together section. These are just tips that I think are really imperative and very helpful if you do want to like take that leap of getting your ideas and thoughts from the page or the computer screen and really out into the real world. So one is to create a visual board. This really helps you see your capsule at a glance. And even though sounds like you can make it physical or digital, whatever works for you. So you can make it on things like Pinterest, like making a Pinterest board, or maybe a Canva collage, or even like yarn lay flats, just so that you can start seeing things coming together. Next up is going to be outlining timelines and milestones. For this one, putting dates and times on your projects really further solidifies your intention and commitment to actually completing the project. It's sort of like, because you know that, let's say you decided you need to finish half the project at this time, you're going to be more motivated or likely to actually get to the halfway point or even finishing because you put a date on it, as opposed to if you don't have any sort of milestone or any sort of timeline for yourself, then you're more likely to slack off and be like, oh, well, I'll just do it the next day or the next week or whatever. Next up is tracking progress. For tracking progress, it's okay to get off track. It's not saying that you have to exactly stay on schedule, but I will say that noting progress not only motivates you to push further, but it also adds clarity to the journey of completion. Just like similar, it's really tied to the outlining timelines thing, where just saying, okay, not only saying I'm going to do halfway at this point, but noting like, all right, this much time has passed, I've completed 25% of it versus 50% of it. And you also get a good idea for your own, like personally, how you work, like what your pace is and different things like that could be of importance to you later down the line, or maybe it's not. But in general, like I said, it further pushes you to adds clarity to your work and your progress. Finally, we have including reminders. Since this is an endeavor that takes time, I mean, it is several projects, and they can be big projects or they can be little projects. It's natural that your focus could veer away, or you maybe could lose motivation as time goes on. You're kind of like, oh, I'm not really into this anymore. So I have two sort of keys for that. One, be adaptable. If a design or idea comes up in the middle of creating your capsule, or just making your capsule, really embrace it and find a way to include it rather than staying rigid, because what's going to happen is that thing that came up in your head that was sort of like, oh, you want to make that, you are going to still have that rattling around, and because of that, you're going to be more likely to maybe drop everything and just go make something separately, or move your attention to the thing and then be distracted from actually completing this. As opposed to that though, you could instead be like, okay, well, I like this design, like maybe like these little heart designs, so maybe I can incorporate that into the project that I'm working on. And then you kind of are still on track to complete your collection or whatever project that you're working on in your collection. And you've also scratched that itch of wanting to try this certain design, or this change that you saw that, tempted you to stop working on your project. Next is to prioritize joy over perfection. It is understandable to want things to come together in exactly the way you imagine, but really the truth is that nothing's perfect. There's been several projects that I've worked on where I thought that it was going to look like this and I imagined it a certain way, and then it wasn't as easy to complete it, or it didn't look the way I expected at all. So just really focus on overall the journey, because also what you'll find, especially if the journey is more enjoyable, is that even in the end, when things aren't as you pan them out to be, you can still appreciate it for what it is. By instead enjoying the journey and all it has to offer, what you'll find is that in addition to the fruits of your labor, you also have fun little anecdotes about how things came to be. Designing a capsule collection is about bringing your ideas, goals, and creative voice into alignment. When your theme, color choices, and projects all connect, your crochet really starts to feel more intentional and like each piece has a place in your bigger story. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want videos similar to this, consider subscribing, and I hope you have a wonderful day.